I hope you're having a beautiful day. I am going live today with Dr. Heather Moday, the immunology doc. She will be joining us here in just a second. Oh, hello. The internet just had an opinion about me going live and decided to cut out, but I am back and I am so excited to be joined by Heather soon. We're going to be talking about stress, immunology, the effect of stress on your immune system, which is particularly relevant in these COVID days, particularly here in NYC. And I am so excited to share all this information with you. I also will be doing my usual live this week on Thursday at 2 p.m. And I hope you can join me then. I am just going to see, yep. Heather is on her way. So meanwhile, I would love to hear from you all. One of my favorite things in the entire world is to hear from you. So drop me an email, podcast@victoriaalbina.com. You can also head on over to my website, victoriaalbina.com /free meditations to grab your suite of meditation videos, which is so exciting. Perfect. Great. Here comes Heather. All right. Beautiful. All right. So as Heather is joining us, the system is waiting for her to join. And systems like Instagram and Zoom have all been so overloaded since many of us have been working from home. We just get to practice patience, right? We get to practice not wanting for things to be different, not wishing they were different, just accepting them how they are. It's a really beautiful practice, and it's been really helpful for my mental health to learn to practice every single day, letting go of those stories that I wish life was being less lifey, that I wish life was being different in any way, because some things in life are unchangeable, right? And the less that we bring that friction in, the more joy we have. So Heather's letting me know that there is a problem and it's not letting her join, but hopefully she will try again. And I will click that join button and let her join this live video chat with y'all. So if you have any questions about your immune system, stress management during this COVID epidemic, please don't hesitate to write them into the chat box, and we will be sure to address as many as we can. We got a number sent via DM, which was really great. So we will definitely be addressing those as soon as Heather is able to join the call. And until then, add your questions in. What's going on in your world, right? What is feeling stressful for you right now? What's creating stress in your life? And how would you like our support? So you've got two clinicians here to support you. Heather Moday, an immunology physician, she's an MD, and myself. So my name is Victoria Albina, for those of you who came over from Heather's channel. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm coming to you live from occupied Lenape territory, also known as NYC. And my work is as a nurse practitioner. I'm a holistic nurse practitioner, life coach, breathwork meditation facilitator, and I also host the podcast Feminist Wellness. So it's a weekly podcast. It's free on all the podcast channels. You can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shows to enjoy the show weekly. We talk a lot about polyvagal theory and other nerdiness. We talk about how to manage stress. And I have a real focus and a passion, really, on helping women who are living with codependency and perfectionism and the stress of those two habitual ways of thinking about the world. So we are currently trying to reconnect with Heather.
Finally.
We won. I think we won at the end.
I have no idea. It just would not connect.
Well, here we are.
Days. Sorry about that delay.
Not a problem.
Okay. Calm. I'm calm. Okay. Speaking of stress, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I took a moment and I introduced myself. Would you like to do the same?
Absolutely. Thank you. So my name is Heather Moday, and I also use she, her pronouns. And I am an immunologist, allergist, MD, trained in functional medicine and integrative medicine. And I practice out of Philadelphia. And yeah, so one of my big interests is one of the big things I teach and talk about is how does our nervous system and stress impact our immunity, and a lot of different things impact it, but that's one of my big interests, particularly very, very important right now. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such a
Sure.
pleasure to be here with you today. So
Yeah.
I know that you can talk all kinds of nerdy, all about the immune system, stress, mental health, physical health. And so I'd love to just turn the floor over to you to nerd out for a few minutes about that, the connection therein. Want to talk white cells?
Sure, yeah. So I'll just take a few minutes and try to keep it really simple. So everybody has a stress response, and that is completely normal. In fact, all day long, we secrete the hormones, cortisol and adrenaline and a couple others, in order to keep our bodies alive. And so this is something we've just, evolutionarily, we've always done, because it controls a lot of different physiologic sort of actions in our body. And ideally, so we have a normal cortisol sort of circadian rhythm. So it's actually very much tied into light and dark cycles. And so one of the reasons why it's really important to have good sleep patterns, right? So, our cortisol is at its highest when we first wake up in the morning. And that makes sense because we're ready to start our day and take a lot of things on. And then over the day, it sort of goes down so that at night it's really low and we can sleep. So that's just sort of the basics. And then throughout the day, we might have little surges of cortisol and adrenaline and things like that when something, it could be something really beneficial, like, we're going for a run, or, we do something exciting. Or it could be like just something like, oh, I walked into the street and a bus almost hit me, or I just had an argument with my partner. So during those situations, you're always going to have, adrenaline going up, coming down, cortisol going up, hopefully coming down. So that's totally normal. The problem occurs, however, when we have either excessive stress in our life, or we have maybe not the greatest ways to manage or to respond to the stressor at hand. And as Victoria talks about a lot, stressors can be physical, they can be emotional, they can be mental, they can even, they can be lots of different things. It doesn't have to be like a really tangible thing. So what happens is over time, we sort of lose our ability to maybe respond so well and get back to that nice baseline. And so our cortisol levels tend to be more elevated chronically. And this is where it becomes a problem. So this is when I'll segue a little bit into how does specifically cortisol affect our immune system. So it makes a lot of sense that if we're doing something, say we're, evolutionarily, they used to say, running from a tiger or running from a saber-toothed tiger, right? Initially, when your cortisol surges and you're really stressed, your immune system actually gets a little activated, because that's good, because, hey, you might get injured. And so you need something to fight infection. So some of your white blood cells are going to go up. You're actually going to have an elevation in some antibody production. So this is all really, really great. But when they've done studies, and they've done studies for years and years and years, they showed that after about 60 minutes of elevated cortisol, the reverse happens. So all of a sudden, your white blood cells, like your T cells and all these things, they start to really plummet. Your natural killer cells, which help fight infection against viruses, plummet. Your antibodies in your gut, which protect your gut lining from pathogens in the gut, plummets. And so when we're in this chronic, like, fight or flight stress state over, years, months, days even, you can start to have a decrease in your ability to potentially fight off infection. And these studies have been done as well, that people who are sort of chronically stressed don't do as well with, like, if they get a vaccine, they actually don't make antibodies as quickly. Mm-hmm. And they just get sick more frequently, or they don't recover from things as well. So that's sort of in a nutshell, what cortisol, is beneficial for, obviously, but how it can be a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for nerding out so hard.
Sure. Yeah. I can do more nerdiness all day.
So one of the things I love to talk about, my audience loves to hear the nerdiness, but also loves to hear how to take action, right? What to do to support ourselves. I've got a couple tricks up my little sleeves, but I'd love to hear a couple of your really actionable, really quick takes, like, okay, I've gotten in touch with what it feels like to be in my stress response. I'm starting to feel sympathetic activation. We talk a lot about polyvagal theory in this family, right? I'm like, okay, this is adrenaline. I'm feeling it. What do I do?
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, and this is something that you can't always do, but if you have the ability, I think the number one thing is get yourself out of the situation you're in, right? So obviously, if you're being stressed by someone that you're arguing with, or say you're being triggered by something that you saw online in a post, or you were, you know, watching something on TV, you know, watching the news or reading the news or something like that, just stop it. Like, shut the computer, turn off the phone, get away from it. Now, I know that's not always the, you know, what you can do, say if you work in a stressful environment, but anytime that you can sort of take a step back and take a little space for yourself, because if you're face to face dealing with a stressor, I mean, your body's just going to go there, right? So you have to remove yourself from the situation. And even if that's like, say you work in a hospital and you need to like go find an empty closet or go into the bathroom, right? You just have to get away. And then I would say, and this is, I'm sure Victoria, you would agree with me on this, is that I think that breath work is the number one thing, because what you're really trying to do, right? You've already secreted the cortisol. It's out there. It's in your bloodstream, right? You've already secreted the adrenaline. You can't take it back. What you're trying to do at that point is then self-regulate the organs and the systems that have been affected. And the big things, obviously, are your heart rate, right? Everyone knows what that feels like when you get that like pounding or that elevated heart rate. You know, you might even feel a little bit dizzy. You might get a headache. You might start to sweat. You might have difficulty breathing or feel nauseous. All of these things are, you know, effects, end effects of that stress response, and everyone feels it differently. So you have to engage that parasympathetic nervous system. And the best and the fastest way to do that is through breath work, right? Doing those deep belly breaths. I always learned the 4-7-8 breathing technique from Andrew Weil, who was one of my mentors. Super quick, you know, you can do 3 rounds of it in like a minute.
Can we pause on that?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to go ahead and teach it, or shall I?
You teach it, yes.
All right.
You are the breath work expert, so yeah.
Wow, I don't know about expert, but I do like to breathe. So yes, yes. So to get ourselves into that ventral vagal state we talk about so much, one of the quickest ways is expanding your belly with a nice big deep breath and breathing out tons of CO2. Get that carbon dioxide out. You're going to shunt the balance of your blood, right? You're going to alkalize your blood temporarily, which will help to bring that sense of calm into your physiology. So the breath is in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. So let's do 1 together. Sound good?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right, so in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Beautiful. And that long, like you just did, is what helps to blow off that CO2.
And it's funny because he used to also say, and I don't know actually what the basis of this was, but he used to say that when you were breathing in, to actually touch the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. And I'm sure it has some sort of acupressure type of point, but yeah, and doing 4 rounds of that, which as you just did, that was 1 round. And so that took like, I don't know how many seconds.
4 + 7 + 8.
Right. Yes, math. Yeah, so just doing that. So, I mean, I really like that. And I do encourage people that to really avoid their triggers, because the thing is we are in like a totally plugged in society, and we are, you know, sort of addicts when it comes to like information. And, you know, news is meant to be consumed. They want us to hyper consume it because, you know, they're trying to get ratings and they're trying to, you know, and I think it's really not beneficial. You can be an informed citizen, you know, by reading and filtering it through your brain, you know, and instead of having it like hitting your, you know, sort of your frontal lobe, like, you know, without you controlling it. Right. So I always say, listen, you want to read the news, take 10, 15 minutes, calm place in the morning, read it, don't watch it, turn it off. You don't need any more of it, because there's no benefit to you. And especially if you're a person who tends to, you know, suffer a little bit from anxiety, it's really just not, it's not good. So, but yeah, so breath work I think is great. The other thing I really love, I think is beneficial, it's beneficial to me, is movement. And of course that includes breathing, right? But not only does it takes your mind off of things. I mean, you can get really zen, right? Like if you're a runner, like I like to run, and I can get into a very like zen, you know, sort of state. It also releases a lot of chemical endorphins, which of course make us feel good. But like yoga, for example, right? You do all the great breath work, and you're, you know, it's very meditative. Even things like Tai Chi or like that type of thing, or whatever really sort of gets you, you know, out of your head, into your body, super helpful, and of course healthy, right? So,
If I
those
may,
are my two favorite. Yeah.
I love that. One of the things I always wanted from a health at all sizes, all bodies is good bodies framework, is that a lot of humans, particularly those of us socialized as female, really have come to equate exercise and things like weight loss and controlling our size and shape. And I had a client last week make a joke that she was gaining the COVID-19, and I was like, oh, honey, please.
Yeah, I mean, I like, you know, I'm 50, so like my body has changed a lot, and I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter anymore, right? Like what I do, you know, when I exercise, it is for my health, but it's more for like, so I can live a long time, and I can, you know, be doing stuff when I'm 80 and not in a wheelchair. It's not whether or not I'm going to fit into a pair of jeans. And, you know, it's for my psychological health, and also for joy, like you said, right? So if you want to dance in your bedroom and that's your form of exercise,
get it.
Dance party, man. I mean, that's great. If you like to walk, if you want to roller skate, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just moving your body. So I think that's a great sort of cortisol disperser.
And I just shared 305 Fitness. They are a phenomenal health at all sizes, amazing. Oops, haha, that is so funny. I just turned my camera around. Y'all, that is the back of my office. Hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did it. Well, so that brings up another thing that has been so helpful for myself and in my relationship during COVID is laughter.
Yeah.
I have decided, and my partner has joined me in really just laughing when things go wrong. Right before I was interviewed on someone's podcast yesterday and spilled an entire bottle of green juice, like a mason jar. I had green juice all over my desk. And just deciding there's a lot that is very, very, very serious right now.
Yeah.
Like here in New York, I am probably less than a mile from a refrigerated morgue truck. Like there's a lot that's really serious. And finding the laughter, finding the lightness, right? Finding those moments to just say like, oh, I just turned the camera around.
Right.
It's hilarious, right?
Absolutely.
We don't have to like make it a my bad, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've been saying for a long time that, you know, laughter is the best medicine. And it's true. I mean, again, they've looked at these studies too, right? I think it was Bernie Siegel years and years and years ago who I think he had cancer. And one of the ways that he used to help him heal was to actually watch, I think he liked the Marx Brothers, but you know, whatever comedy you like, I mean, just, it's that laughing actually is so beneficial. And it's really great for your immunity. It helps with your immunity. It doesn't suppress your white blood cells, it increases them. So, laughter is great. And the thing is now is everyone, for the most part, is in a situation that is no fun, right? So, and obviously some people more seriously, like if you're a frontline worker or if you've lost someone, I mean, that is a tragedy. Or if you've lost your job, right? But,
Right.
you know, we all are in situations where, you know, it's not ideal. And, you know, trying to find the levity in life and the joy in life, it's still important, you know,
Right.
regardless, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Um,
a way to get ventral vagal with yourself.
mm-hmm,
Right.
yeah,
And for those of
absolutely.
you who don't know about polyvagal theory, I'll just take a 2-second
Yeah,
detour.
absolutely.
So our autonomic or automatic nervous system is controlled by our vagus nerve, which runs through the middle of the animal, and it has two main branches. So sympathetic, we were talking about earlier, adrenaline based, fight or flight. Oh my God, a lion's going to come and it's going to eat me and everyone I've ever met. And then there's parasympathetic, which has two branches. And so the first one is the ventral vagal, the front body, which is our rest and digest. And then the back body is the dorsal vagal. And that's the part that controls shutdown, immobilization. When you just know you can no longer run, you can't like fight a lion. I mean, I'm 5'3¾". I'm not going to fight a lion, right? Like, good luck to me, and good snack into a lion. So that's that's that shutdown playing possum, and that in
Right.
humans can look like depression. It can also look like, yeah, okay, fine, we can do whatever you want. Just that sort of like giving
Yeah,
up.
giving up.
Yeah, just when you have no fight left in you.
Yeah.
And so we talk a lot on the Feminist Wellness podcast about how to get into ventral vagal. And I know you talk a lot in your medical practice about this, but ventral vagal is the safe and secure part of our nervous system. It's when our bodies feel really calm, really tender, like when you're all snuggly on the couch or snuggly with someone you love or a pet, something dear, right?
Yeah.
That's that part of your nervous system. And that is the time when you're in that state where you can digest, make thyroid hormone. And I'm wondering if you could chime in about your immune system and ventral vagal.
Yeah, so it's really sort of the same idea. You know, we actually need. That was my cat.
Wanting to get ventral vagal with you?
He's he can be a little destructive. So you know, the whole idea of the rest and digest, right? We call it rest and digest because we are more in that ventral vagal parasympathetic state when we're sleeping, but also after, you know, we've eaten, right? So we're sort of full, and we need the hormones to actually help us break down food and digest food, but also more importantly is that part of the vagal nerve is innervating the digestive tract that allows it to move, right? So, you know, one of the things that I see, and I know that you see as well, is chronic gastrointestinal problems or flare-ups of things like IBS or Crohn's disease or things like that when we are stressed, or, you know, chronic constipation or the opposite, diarrhea. It doesn't matter, just a malfunctioning of our GI system. So, and also when we sleep and we're in more of that parasympathetic state, that's also when we actually have low cortisol and higher amounts of a hormone called melatonin. And melatonin actually is sort of, it's opposite to cortisol for a reason. It gets turned on by darkness, right? So you can't have good melatonin if you're up looking at a TV or your screen all night long. And when we have melatonin and low cortisol, we actually have an upregulation in our immune system. So it allows a movement of our white blood cells to tissues that are damaged. So we can do a lot of repair. A lot of white blood cells will hone into lymph nodes, which is, you know, we have lymph nodes all over our bodies, but that's sort of where they hang out and wait for directions, right? So that they can go to places. So it's like that whole repair stage. And also that's when we're actually best at fighting infection. And so, you know, everyone has probably experienced going to sleep when they're sick and they actually might have a fever at night. We actually have a more aggressive immune response at night. And so that's how it all ties in, you know, this sort of, you know, parasympathetic, low cortisol, stronger immunity at that point. Really, really important when we're trying to fight something off or not get something, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you can't really have a balanced immune system without that balance of the parasympathetic and sympathetic, you know, response, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been seeing in the folks with whom I work a lot of sleep issues lately.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of sleep anxiety, not sleeping deeply, waking up, not feeling rested.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of tricks up my sleeve for that, but I'd love to hear your favorites.
Sure. You know, people have different types of sleep disturbances. So, of course, there's like sleep onset insomnia, which, you know, that is, you know, they can't fall asleep because their mind is racing. And then there's the waking up in the middle of the night and I can't go back to sleep type of problem.
Right.
So there's, you know, different things. And then there's, of course, oh, I slept 8 hours, but I don't feel very refreshed.
Right.
So I think that one of the big things for onset of sleep is, first of all, just you have to knock out the technology. Like,
right.
If you got to take a digital detox, take a digital detox. Like, it just needs to stop, right?
Right.
Because a lot of people say, oh, you know, I can watch TV or I can read this or I can. No. If you're not falling asleep or you're having trouble sleeping or waking up in the middle of the night, your body and your brain remembers something that you read, you know, 3 hours earlier, and it will wake you up. So I always say, don't watch horror movies. Don't watch something that's really upsetting. I mean, half the stuff on Netflix is really like, it's upsetting, right? So like, I don't know, watch something just really fun and stupid, like a romantic comedy or something like that, if you're having trouble falling asleep, or just read. And I'm a big fan of using blue light blocking glasses.
Yep.
I use a pair every night. And what that does is it filters out that blue light. And so it's going to really encourage your melatonin to go up and your cortisol to go down. So, and that's really important if you have to, say for your job, work into the evening on a screen.
Right.
So that's number one. The other thing is to, you know, have some sort of routine before bedtime. And I like to do a brain dump. I love doing a brain dump. And that basically is journaling, which I know you talk a lot about journaling. But, you know, a lot of people like to journal in the morning, and I do. But when I'm feeling worried and stressed, I dump it out of my head. I put it onto the page. Because it's like removing it. So I'll do that, and then I'll do a body scan meditation, just like 5 to 10 minutes in my bed, body scan, you know, reflexively, just relaxing each muscle group. Those are the types of things I think that can be really, really helpful. I mean, there's many others. There's aromatherapy, which I think is really helpful. And then I like to use adaptogens. So, you know, we could talk a little bit about that, but you can tell me what you like to do.
Yeah. And I just posted that episode 12 of my podcast, Feminist Wellness, is all about sleep and insomnia. So I share some of the cognitive behavioral strategies that I recommend and teach my life coaching clients. And I also share things like the adaptogenic herbs, why we do these sleep hygiene things. So I break down the science and the sacred, what's going on there for you. Yeah. But I love the brain dump, right?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. We have this idea that, you know, we can sort of sleep on a dime, and, you know, maybe you could when you were 10,
right?
But most adults, we can't sleep on a dime. You know, we're carrying the burdens of the entire day. Most of us are hyperstimulated, and it takes time to just calm our brain. And I like to think of sleep onset as sort of like you're letting go of the day. You're allowing yourself to fall into this state that is, you know, we spend half our lives asleep. I mean, so it's not like, oh, we're awake and we're alive and sleep is just this thing, this inconvenience. It's part of our normal human cycle. And every actual creature, every part of the animal kingdom actually sleeps. In fact, we sleep the least, like humans actually sleep the least. And so it's super important. It's a waking state. I mean, it's a non-waking state, but it's probably more important than what we do during the day, believe it or not. So you have to give it a little bit of care and attention, because I find that some of the worst issues come out of sleeplessness and
Right.
problems. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
And I think one of the, absolutely the sleep hygiene and making sure those blue screens are off. I like to
yeah.
say 2 hours before sleep.
Yep,
I think New
absolutely.
like, nah, forget you. But give me a half hour minimum. I
Mm-hmm.
really highly recommend 2 hours. But really attending to the whole blue light thing
Yeah.
is really key. Having your bedroom nice and cool, 68
Mm-hmm.
degrees or so is what the studies show. And
Yeah.
what's really interesting is a study of hunter-gatherer societies showed that yes, it's the blue light of the sky turning off at
Mm-hmm.
sunset that stimulates our pineal gland in our brains to
Mm-hmm.
make melatonin when we stop getting that blue
Mm-hmm.
light through our eyes.
Right.
It's also the change in temperature. So if you think
Yeah.
about on a hot summer day, you're out in the sun, your whole body is warmed, and then
Right.
the sunlight
Yeah.
goes and you chill. That's your
Mm-hmm.
body's signal, like, all right, it's bedtime. Because think about it. If the sun's gone to sleep and you've gone to sleep, the lions have gone to sleep. So
Right.
it's time to sleep.
Yeah.
Because as soon as that sun comes up and warms the world, the lions will get up. So you need to be ready and back, prepared to go into sympathetic dominance to run
Yeah.
away or to fight a lion if
Right.
you need to. And I get it that,
Absolutely.
the sleep can be a challenging thing for a lot of us due to all sorts of chemical reasons, habits, and also it's a dorsal vagal state. So it is
Right.
that immobilized state. So for folks who are dealing with a lot of perceived stress, if the world feels really stressful coming in and you don't have a modality or tools to manage that,
Mm-hmm.
that can be when your brain turns on, when it goes into a bit of sympathetic, into a little adrenaline and cortisol, because sort of surrendering to sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
That state of absolute vulnerability can feel really, really scary. So
Yeah.
it's a moment in which we are absolutely releasing control.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's often the work that I'll have folks start with. So there's several episodes of the podcast that are about control and uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And I would really recommend listening to those and starting to do thought downloads where you write down everything in your brain, like you
Mm-hmm.
suggested, before you head into bed. So I actually
Yeah.
do, like, even before I brush my teeth and take my melatonin and take my ashwagandha,
Right.
I pause with like a candle lit or, a salt lamp on, not a blue light, and I'll write out all the things that have been, experienced by my body and myself as stressful.
Yeah.
So that I can get them out, and then in the morning do the thought work that I teach on the podcast and to my clients as a way to work through it and to understand where I'm having habitual thoughts that
Mm-hmm.
are keeping me in habitual feelings
Yep.
that create stress, anxiety, tension in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that was a good point, that you always want to associate your bedroom and your bed as a sanctuary, right? And so even if you live in a studio apartment and you
Right.
don't have, right, a disconnect between your bed and, the rest of your apartment, there are ways that you can sort of just cultivate your bed as being like, this is the place that I sleep. It's not the place that I watch the news. It's not the
Right.
place that I worry, that I do work. I mean, you really want to try to keep that as your place of rest, if, especially if you're having difficulty sleeping.
Right.
And then also, if you at first don't succeed with what you're doing, don't give up. Just because ashwagandha or lavender oil didn't help you the first night, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not going to help you. It just means that you need to give it some more time.
Right.
You have to try different modalities, and that if you're feeling frustrated in the middle of the night, that you should get up, you should remove yourself from your bed, you should go someplace in your house, apartment. Again, don't put on bright lights, put on like a candle. If you can see to read, do that. If not, do a little, meditation. Just don't decide to clean the house. That's not a good idea. And eventually you'll start to feel that naggy, sleepy feeling, and then you can take yourself back. And you know, it can take a few rounds of that. I mean, it's like sleep retraining. It's like training a
Right.
newborn, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 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 And I think a lot about that, right? Because one of the things that I help is to connect in with the part of them that so I was thinking about control, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But I cut you off. Go ahead, Doc.
Oh, no, you didn't. I don't think you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that we mentioned about light, which I think is important. So, and this is if you find that you say you had difficulty sleeping and you feel really awful the next day, and this is sort of a training thing. So the absence of light is just as important as the presence of light.
Right.
And so, as you mentioned, when you first wake in the morning, like literally when your eyes open, right? Bright light, you know, broad spectrum light it's going to hit a part of our brain through the retina, and it's going to stimulate, it's going to shut down melatonin, which is already on the going down, and it's going to shoot up cortisol and also serotonin, of course, which is like one of our feel good neurohormones. But that increase in cortisol is really important. So the first about hour of the day, we have a sharp increase. It's called the cortisol awakening response. And if you don't have that nice peak of cortisol, right, for the rest of the day, your normal circadian rhythm is going to be a little off. And that can really cause a lot of fatigue issues during the day. It can also get in the way of you falling asleep again that night. And so, you know, it's not as much of a problem now because it's almost June and it's sunny, right? But when you get up in the morning, don't hit snooze. If you're trying to regulate your sleep, if you're having trouble with insomnia, get up in the morning. If you have to set an alarm, get up and literally open up the curtains or walk outside and like let the light flood your eyeballs. If you do that consistently, even if you love to sleep in, I will tell you, if you stay in a cave in a room and, you know, you press snooze a million times, you will consistently still have problems with sleep.
Yep.
You know, many of us aren't working on our normal schedules right now, and so we might have more flexibility. Sounds like a great idea, but if you're struggling with sleep quality, this is not something you should do. You should really try to get up as soon as you wake up and let that light, even if it's just opening your window, come in. So I think that's really important too.
Yeah, one of the things that came to me when you're talking about sleep training is the importance of treating our adult selves with a constant recognition, awareness of, and connection with our inner child.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know for myself, and I see this in my clients and in my patients all the time, that when we get overtired, which we can easily recognize as a toddler, right? Because developmentally they don't have those same controls that we do, you know, they're fine, a little whiny, a little meltdown, right? They're supposed to do that. That is normal and correct, right? But we as adults do it too, just in sort of more subtle ways. And so when we are clued into ourselves, when we have done the work to raise our awareness around the subtle signals from our bodies and have learned how to connect in with our inner children, we can often hear that signal like, hey there, time to head towards bed before we cross that line, right? Because there's that thing that happens at night is that tired but wired that can happen with cortisol dysregulation.
Absolutely.
Where usually around 11 p.m., folks will get this second wind. And so you were tired, and now you're awake.
Right. Yeah.
And so the more you can get in touch, right, not just with the sensations in your body that are easier to feel, like ouch, or the feelings that are easier to identify, like anger or sadness or joy, but the subtle ones, right? Like, I'm feeling a little irritable. I'm not hungry. I'm not angry. I'm not tired. Not lonely. I'm tired.
I'm tired. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Halting and constantly halting. It's a thing I do often. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So I can clue into myself and just know what's up. So I can
that's a great acronym. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so
absolutely
useful. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
I
can
think
give
that's
myself
great.
that attention. Yeah. And of course, checking in with our inner child about it, because
Mm-hmm.
if bedtime was a stressful thing as a little one, we can have that internal resistance, that
Mm-hmm.
internal push against doing a thing that as our adult selves, we know we need to be in bed by 9:30, 10,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and actually, the studies on sleep have shown that, I know there's a lot of night owls probably out there, but there is an advantage to being an early bird because we actually get our deep stage sleep
Right.
earlier in the evening. So, and deep sleep, we have different stages of sleep, like REM sleep, we have deep sleep and a lot of light sleep. So deep sleep comes early after we fall asleep, usually before midnight. You
Right.
might have a little bit after 1, but it's that part of the evening. So, and what do we do during deep sleep? That's our restorative and reparative time. Like that is the time that our bodies and tissues get the most restoration. So like say you go to the gym, or well, not the gym now, but
Yeah.
say you do a really hard Zumba workout in your room, or you go running, right? You actually, if you don't get deep sleep, you will find that you don't recover as well. And the same thing
Right.
with your immune system. We have more of that deep sleep is when we have more of that immune activation. And so putting yourself to bed earlier is better. And, I'm not a big like wearables person, but if you really want to test yourself, even just for a couple of weeks, and you happen to have a Fitbit or something like that, you can actually look to see if you're hitting any of your deep sleep cycles. Now, it's not 100% accurate, but it does give you some sense. And so I know a lot of people are like, I could never go to bed that early, but it's amazing. You actually get better sleep earlier in the evening
Yeah.
because of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of the wearables because of
Right.
the EMFs,
Right.
right?
EMF.
But I get your point, when we think about harm reduction, that it may be useful to get a week or two of EMF exposure and get the data,
Right.
and then stop wearing.
Well, if you need to prove it to yourself, right? You
right.
need to be like, do I really get this deep sleep?
Right.
Because there's no other way to actually look at it. But yeah, and I think that if you are having difficulty with sleep quality, is to change, to change that pattern, to try to shift to going to bed 15 minutes early, and then maybe a half an hour early,
right.
And things like that. So you can play around with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, in the mental health life coaching work that I do with my clients, all of this baseline stuff, attending to your nutrition, your sleep, your movement, hydrating appropriately.
Yeah.
It's all so vital because it's really, really challenging to do the thought work, to look at your thoughts and the feelings they're creating for you so you can start to live life with intention, shift your thought patterns. It's really challenging to do when you are exhausted, when you are chasing that dopamine of sugar, when you are when your cells are in that hyperactivated state that increases hypervigilance, for example, to bring it back to polyvagal, right? That all that sympathetic activation keeps you from making your best decisions in life because your cognition is really optimized in ventral vagal. And when you've slept well, when you've eaten whatever food, and never out here demonizing any food, but saying, when you're not on that quick activation cycle of quick carbs and sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I agree with you. I am very anti, sort of demonizing really any food, as long as it's not something that's like chemically processed. I will say though that, definitely you want to pay attention to what you're eating in the evening and how the quality of your sleep is, because sometimes it could be maybe you're eating too close to bed and that's waking you up. Maybe you're not digesting well. So like maybe if you have something harder to digest, like if you eat a steak or something, and that might sort of wake you up. Or if you have a little bit too much sugar, because sugar, of course, is activating, right? And then another thing it can do is you can have like a drop in your blood sugar overnight when you have a big bolus of sugar, like before you go to bed,
Right.
in the middle of the night, your blood sugar drops. And when your blood sugar drops, your cortisol goes up. So all of a sudden you wake up, same thing happens with alcohol too, but
Yep.
you know, you might wake in the middle of the night and go, I don't understand. I don't know what I did. And it's like, oh yeah, I actually had a couple of those, you know, I had, you know, 5 cookies or something. And again, not to demonize food.
No,
But it's, you have to be a little sort of a detective, in terms of looking at that too.
Yeah, one of my favorite tricks is if you're having that waking in the night, is to take a spoonful of coconut oil before bed. So
Something fatty.
Yeah, the medium chain triglycerides, MCTs, in coconut oil are insulin neutral, so they won't cause a blood sugar spike overnight as you digest them. So it's one way to be your own detective, right? I talk a lot about being a thought detective. This is a way to be a physiology detective, to see what's doing what in your body.
Right.
Yeah. So empowering.
Yeah, because you know, there's not there's way too much dogma on you know, on social media about what we should eat and not eat. And you know, I'm an allergist, right? So I get every question in the book. And you know, true allergies do exist, and some true sensitivities, but you know, just saying that a certain food group is bad for you because, you know, someone decided to say it was bad for you, that doesn't necessarily apply to you. And so, you know, that self-experimentation is really important. And a lot of times the things that are sort of bothering us may not have to necessarily even do, you know, with the food. It could be the situation, right? So, but I agree. It's like keeping that, making sure that your blood sugar is stable, right? Because that can actually really mess with sleep, which again is going to mess with your ability to fight infections. And what's really interesting is when you do get sick, your body has a mechanism in which it almost forces you to sleep longer. So that sounds like you actually will sleep longer. Like say if you're trying to, you know, if you have a cold and you're like, oh my God, I never sleep more than 8 hours and I slept 11 hours, like, and you feel guilty about it. It's like, oh no. Your brain was actually doing that for you because it allowed your immune system to do its job. So we actually do sleep more when we're physically sick. Which is a good thing. So you just have to give into it. You just got to let it happen, you know?
Right.
So,
and on that note, you know, my work is predominantly with folks managing codependency and perfectionism. So guilt is a pretty knee-jerk reaction for a lot of it's a habit. It's a thought habit, right? Yeah. And
I think one of the biggest things, and you've talked about this too, Victoria, is this idea about being productive, right? During this time. I mean, we've all felt it. I felt it, you know. You know, why haven't I got, whether it's, oh, I didn't get enough work done, or, oh, I didn't get to, you know, start that novel or learn to bake sourdough or whatever. Or I didn't organize my closets. That kind of stuff is that perfectionism. I mean, that'll just eat you alive and make you even more stressed. So, you know, there's really no point in that. It's just going to make things so much worse.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things that we know is that perfectionism, trying to do everything perfect, will generally often lead to procrastination. Because when your body, your brain thinks, I have to do this perfect or everything's on the line. And by everything on the line, what your brain means is you're going to be mean to you about it if you don't meet some sort of, frankly, imaginary story. Some imaginary standard in your head or some expectation of yourself. Then I think it's perfectly logical of your immune system, of your nervous system rather, and your inner child to say, well, if the stakes are so high to do that thing because I have to do it perfectly, then, you know, I'm gonna steer clear of it.
Right. Because, you know, then if you don't do it at all, then you don't have the opportunity to fail. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Protective mechanisms.
Backfires.
Exactly. 100%. As we're coming up on the hour, I want to send people over to your website. Is there anywhere in particular you want to steer folks?
Yeah, well, you can, of course, come to my Instagram account, which is, you know, at the Immunity MD. And that is where I post a lot and, you know, do some videos on Instagram TV. And then I also have a website, which is linked there, which is just www.modayscenter.com. We have some programs. We're going to be doing more online programs as well, other than our, one-on-one clients as well. So, yeah, we're just really trying to spread a lot of, hope and good news about how wonderfully strong and amazing our immune systems are. I think that a lot of the news that we hear is very like doom and gloom, and we're just victims of something, and that we have no way to, recover or fight from this, and which is nothing could be further than the truth. The human immune system is more effective than any vaccine that's ever been made on the planet. So, and by treating yourself right and doing the things to keep your body healthy without driving yourself crazy, is really our best defense. Really our best defense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah. The health of the terrain is everything.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
As folks who practice holistic and functional medicine, and so folks can head on over to your site to learn a lot more from you. And I have some meditations to share because mindfulness is so important. So I am pinning that right now. If you go over to victoriaalbina.com/free meditations, you can download your suite of meditations. There is a body scan, which the good doctor spoke about the importance of for bed, inner child meditation, boundary setting meditation, and an exercise from the polyvagal world to help calm your nervous system and get you ventral vagal with yourself, which is called orienting. It helps to pull you out of that sympathetic so that you can get to that calm, centered, self-loving place where you can attend to the things we've been talking about, like your sleep hygiene, making nutrition choices that serve you and feel good and self-loving, get some loving movement to support your immune system, and so that you can do your thought work.
Yes.
Perfect. Great. Anything else you want to share with folks?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so, but ask me questions. Feel free to DM me, and I have a few other Instagram Q&As coming up this week. So follow me, and we'll be talking all about immunity, but in different ways. And I love your podcast. I always send a lot of my clients to listen. I think it's just so beneficial because a lot of the stuff you talk about, no one's really talking about. So really helpful. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Doc. That means an awful lot to me. It is quite the labor of love, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you everyone else for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And keep your eyes on my Instagram and Dr. Heather's Instagram. We are both being of service here by being really active and of support. So don't be a stranger. If you're not following at the Immunity MD, I don't know what you're doing with your life. So head on over and follow her, and keep an eye on my stories. I will be live here on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as usual. And on Thursday, you'll get a new podcast episode. So make sure that you're subscribed over on the Apple Podcasts, and be in touch. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Doc.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Victoria.
Thank you.
Bye.